You're listening to a CNA podcast.
And that's the sound of gunfire at Thailand and Cambodia's contested border area earlier today. The conflict escalating, with reports of several casualties. The Thai army has also deployed F-16 jets and striking what it said were Cambodian military targets. Cambodia reported 2 bombs being dropped on the road, and both sides accusing the other of starting the fight first. I'm Genevieve Woo in this special episode of the CNA Correspondent podcast, where Saksith Saiyasombut has been tracking the latest escalation. Now, Saksith, where are you now?
Hey Jen, I'm in front of the National Security Council in Bangkok, where officials both from the civilian government as well from the military have been mulling about what to do next in this border conflict that has escalated on this Thursday morning.
Right, this escalation has taken a deadly turn. You know, it was on May 28th when it started, when one Cambodian soldier was shot dead. Since then, it's been 2 months and the guns have been quiet until now. What triggered today's deadly exchange?
We have to emphasize that it's very difficult to get a clear picture because most of the news lines we are getting are from the Thai army. Of course, we're getting information from the Cambodians, but you will see why this is very difficult because both sides are blaming each other about who has shot first. But what we do know is that there have been clashes, armed clashes, since Thursday morning in Surin province. And this is where soldiers from both sides have been facing off each other. As the morning progresses, we have heard then further escalation strikes, including missile strikes from Cambodia using artillery. And those have hit civilian targets in Thailand, in Surin province, but also in other spots along the 800 kilometers of the border. We are also seeing a lot of casualties, civilian casualties. The numbers are still very fuzzy at the moment, but I'm afraid that the number of casualties of civilians being killed and injured on either side could rise as we speak.
Yeah, that's right. Is this the most serious escalation we have seen so far?
In this conflict specifically, that, as you have said, that has started 2 months ago, yeah, definitely. 2 months ago, it started with patrol troops from 2 armies encountering in the woods, and that escalated in a gunfire that killed 1 Cambodian soldier. Ever since then, we have seen more or less a simmering tensions with tit-for-tats between both countries exchanging border closures, trade bans, and such. But in the last week or so, things have escalated even further because a week ago, a Thai soldier was injured when he stepped on a mine in this disputed territory, with the Thais blaming the Cambodians of having put a new mine in uncharted territory. And that happened again on Wednesday, a day before we are recording this. That has then further escalated and prompted the Thai government to downgrade diplomatic relations, to expel the Cambodian ambassador to Thailand, and also call back its Thai ambassador back to Bangkok. So that was an early sign that things were heading to a further escalation.
Now, 2 months, like you said, this has been simmering. Why have both sides not been able to de-escalate and let it deteriorate to what we see today?
That is a good question. As I said, that both countries have been engaged in tit-for-tat measures, of course, with both sides claiming the moral high ground. But the problem is just simply that there's also a lot of nationalist sentiments on both sides of the border playing a big role here. And neither side wants to be seen as giving in to the quote-unquote enemy or to be seen as the weaker of the 2 countries. So I think that national pride plays a big role here as well.
Thailand and Cambodia have a long-standing joint boundary commission, where both countries resolve border issues bilaterally. But in this latest salvo, Cambodia's Hun Manet has reached out to the United Nations Security Council for intervention. I mean, he called it Thailand's unprovoked and pre-mediated attacks. Why did Hun Manet escalate this to the UN?
Because they are seeking an internationalization of this conflict, more or less. And this is something that the Thais do not like at all. They don't like their conflicts at the border, be it with the border with Cambodia, be it the border with Myanmar, also the insurgency at the border with Malaysia, to be internationalized and to have other countries come in and maybe have these things go to their disadvantage. So this is probably one of the major reasons. So on the flip side, of course, Cambodia is betting on the international bodies like the United Nations, but also the international courts of justice to rule in their favor. We have seen these happen before, where Phnom Penh has called on The Hague to rule on where exactly the border is running between Thailand and Cambodia. And each time Cambodia came out as the quote-unquote winner.
Right. Now, both countries have now recalled their ambassador. They have asked their nationals to pull out each other's country. Is the door to a diplomatic solution closed, at least for now? Do we expect more violence?
At least for now, a diplomatic solution looks very difficult right now. Now is the time of the armed forces of both countries to speak with the weapons. That is a major problem. Whereas in Cambodia, things are a little bit more clear-cut given their government. Here in Thailand, it looks a little bit more uncertain because, you have to keep in mind the armed forces in Thailand are independent from the civilian government. They are not under civilian control. Yes, both sides can cooperate with each other, but the Thai military, given its history, does not want to be put under civilian control. And that is why border conflict, not only the armed clashes what we have seen today, but also the simmering conflict leading up to it, all the provocations, all the tit-for-tat measures that I mentioned, were more or less being done by the armed forces.
And now, things are so heated. Can you foresee how both can climb down from this escalation?
Now, as I said, the diplomatic solution is not very easy right now. But the problem right now is that probably that there is a possibility that there will be some sort of strategic deadlock between the two countries, militarily speaking. Now, we know that given the powers of both armies, that the Thai armies should have the upper hand, especially when it comes to air superiority, especially with their fighter jets that can target artillery fire in Cambodian territory. They can also weaken the potential of Cambodian missile strikes into Thai territory. Now, that would be the military side of things. Of course, the diplomatic side of things, with both ambassadors being called back from each other. And also, let's not forget, Thailand right now is in the middle of a political crisis, partially because of this border conflict right now. The Prime Minister, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, that name we will probably discuss it in a second, she has been suspended because the Constitutional Court has taken up a petition to look for potential ethics violation because of a leaked phone call that she had with Hun Sen, the ex-Prime Minister and President of the Senate over there, in which she appeared to be kowtowing to a family friend and also throwing a Thai army commander under the bus while this conflict was still going on. And also on top of that, there has been a cabinet reshuffle. We don't have a defense minister, believe it or not. We don't have a defense minister right now that probably could also then, deal with these things right now.
It's interesting that you brought up Paetongtarn Shinawatra's political woes because there's actually a personal angle to this conflict. Her father, Thaksin Shinawatra, used to be great buddies with Hun Sen, but that has recently soured. What happened there?
It's quite a spectacular breakup of two BFFs there, right? So, we... Yeah, as you said, you have Thaksin, former Thai Prime Minister who has been in exile for a good 15 years. Part of that time, he was actually at Hun Sen in Cambodia seeking shelter. What then has happened is something that we wouldn't have expected, that, there's a apparent breakup. And this is still something that a lot of people and a lot of experts we have talking to are still quite puzzled by, given how close these two were. But apparently, as much we understand that some sort of promises must have not been kept by either side. But Thaksin has not kept his end of the bargain. And also Hun Sen probably has realized that Thaksin, given how influential he is in Thai politics, given that his daughter is prime minister, given that he's the patriarch of the ruling Pheu party, is apparently not as useful and not as influential as people think that he is. And that's probably why he feels comfortable then to act against him, to not only leak that phone call with his daughter, but also to lob verbal hand grenades on social media against him, so to speak. So Thaksin himself, of course, is also very incensed and very flabbergasted at what has happened today. So basically, I said that these two are BFFs, but it's very unlikely that these two men will become friends again, not only given their age, but also what has happened ever since. And that is probably very emblematic of what we are seeing right here now. That we have seeing an armed conflict between two countries where people from both sides are suffering, not only loss of lives, injury and stuff like that, but also before that, when borders are closed and millions and billions of dollars worth of border trades collapsing in just a very short period of time. But then also given that how influential two ruling families and two patriarchs are, apparently not being able to resolve this in a manner where people don't come to damages. Now that is the tragedy that we must not forget here.
Right. And lastly, Saksith, if bilateral diplomacy is not available right now, who can play an effective mediator or an honest broker of peace that both countries can trust? Is it ASEAN? Is it China?
That is very difficult because you would think that these are two, but then again, if you look back to the previous conflicts that we have, both countries weren't able to do much as well. So basically, this conflict kind of fizzled out after a few days anyway. There's one thing with ASEAN that we must not forget here. The current chair is Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, and he has appointed Thaksin as one of his informal advisors. So, there's some sort of conflict of interest there. So that might make things difficult. And China, well, yeah, of course. I mean, China is influential in the sense of that of diplomatic ties with both countries. They could be bringing in together, but the problem is that is China actually interested to intervene in that or not? So given what else is going on in the world right now, the problem is just simply that does anybody actually care about the conflict that we are seeing here in Southeast Asia?
Right. Saksith, a complicated story, so many moving parts. We've got historical baggage, old friendships that turn sour, national pride at stake, and now innocent civilians caught up in the crossfire. We'll be keeping a close watch on this fast-moving story. Thank you for helping our listeners make sense of it. Head to YouTube and CNA.Asia for the latest on the Thailand-Cambodia border conflict. I'm Genevieve Woo. Thanks for joining me on this special episode on the CNA Correspondent podcast. It's brought to you by Sa Yi Wind, Clara Ong, Tiffany Ang, and Craig Dale. Bye for now.